Welcome to the NBA Profit Show, powered by EV Analytics. I'm John Metler. He's Adam Scherher. Adam, how's it going today?
Well, pretty well. Wish we had more than one NBA game to talk about, but at least I guess we have football.
You're not fired up for Dallas Mavericks at Utah Jazz in a standalone Thursday night game?
Yeah, just amazing Mavs Jazz game tonight.
Yeah. So last week we did go, or not last week. On Tuesday we went 1-2. Brooke Lopez, 3 assists. Annoying. LaMelo Ball, he was sitting on 28. It was like a 25-point game. He comes back in the fourth quarter, pretty late in the fourth quarter too. Then he goes over, but Reese Shade, not even close. Guy's not a creator of offense. I think you talk about nailing a take when you said Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels are the two you expect to like pick up that role of Trae Young being out. They both had like phenomenal games. Pick off the Celtics, which is kind of the next topic I do want to get into here. So NBA Cup Tuesday, not NBA Cup today, but NBA Cup tomorrow. I was just curious if you saw anything that stood out to you from like a minutes wise. Like there is the point differential. I think Kyrie Irving was talking about like, hey, like if there's the opportunity to kill teams, we're going to. A lot of players have been referencing it. Is there anything you noticed from Tuesday that looked different because it was NBA Cup that people might be able to apply tomorrow on Friday?
The only thing that I saw that stood out to me was Charlotte, like you mentioned. LaMelo had no business coming back in that game, and the only explanation I can think of is that they were trying to not lose by, as many points as they were. Like he subbed in with 7 minutes to go in what was like a 30-point game. He's pretty much never coming back in that spot, I wouldn't think. And you still had Brandon Miller on the floor. You had Josh Green on the floor. You had Grant Williams out there. So Charlotte left their guys in really deep into a blowout. Orlando didn't seem to care. Franz Wagner didn't play the fourth quarter. Goga didn't play the fourth quarter. KCP didn't play the fourth quarter. So Orlando didn't seem to care about the point differential, but it definitely seemed like Charlotte did. Other than that, nothing stood out, but there were a lot of competitive games too. Teams did mostly in those games play their guys normal minutes. I didn't notice any teams looking back through rotations where you had guys play, 42, 43 minutes, anything like that. Like maybe you will see later on in the in-season tournament, but Charlotte was the one that stood out. And then individually, I don't think this was NBA Cup related, but just good to note, Robert Williams is physically capable of playing 26 minutes in an NBA game, which I wish I had known going into that game.
Yeah, I think he's on the trade block too. I saw that they're probably someone's going to get moved. Another angle I was thinking of, so maybe it's not game one, but like now as you like progress further, it starts to set up more and more scenarios for these teams in the NBA Cup. The Charlotte one was weird to me because if you're going to go down 0-1 and you're down 30, the NBA Cup is probably already over for you. You can't overcome that point differential, even if you cut it to like 2017, like you're 0-1 minus 17. That's kind of be hard to beat. So that one was weird to me. The one that kind of interests me moving forward is Boston Celtics lose the Atlanta Hawks 0-1. Don't hit a bad point differential because I think it's -2. They also are in a group where they could kill some of those teams. Do you think is that something that would interest you when you're going through player props tomorrow on Friday or spreads or even like moving forward that it might be foot on the gas for the Celtics going forward because they have to play the point differential game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. It's always, you're trying to weight that against, exactly how much do they care, but also their guys, their main guys at least already play a lot. In competitive games, Tatum and Brown play a lot. But with a team like the Celtics, to your point, I do think that maybe you project them a little bit higher because if you're just looking at average minute projections for guys like Tatum and Brown, it's naturally going, their average playing time is going to be a little bit lower than normal just because the Celtics blow so many teams out. But if maybe they do get a couple extra minutes in blowouts now because the point differential matters, that would drive it back up to as if the Celtics were like a team that wasn't better than everybody in the NBA.
Yeah. The other thing I don't really bet spreads, but typically like football, basketball, you're like, oh, a team's favored by 10. You're like, well, they're not trying to win by 10. They're just trying to win the game. This might actually be spots where like, hey, the Celtics are capable. And I remember last year against the Bulls, where they're like hacking Drummond and like Billy Donovan got mad at Joe Mazzulla, and then Mazzulla was like, hey, we have to win by 20. And then there was like kind of a different like take to the game. And like they were trying, I think they'd win by like 17. I'm just curious, like as you start to set up, I feel like the one that really pops to me is the Celtics. So like if you see player props more and you're like, hey, Drew Holiday looks good to the over, and the minutes aren't typically that high, could be higher. I don't know, but you also wonder, do they care? I don't know if the Celtics do care, right?
Right, yeah, and so I mean that's kind of you're trying to balance that, but I do think it's reasonable, especially again in a case like the Celtics, to expect a little bit more. Like if you look at the playing time for the Celtics this year, Jaylen Brown's averaging 36.2 minutes per game, Jason Tatum's averaging 36, Derek White's at just shy of 34, Drew's at 31. Um, we didn't see huge playing time last game, but where I think it matters, it's not necessarily that I think if the game is relatively competitive, Jason Tatum's playing 41 minutes now. It's that if the Celtics are winning by 28 with 8 minutes to go in the game, whereas Jason Tatum normally would just be on the bench and he finishes that game at 30 minutes or whatever, does he get to 32, 33 now? Is he gonna just get that extra minute or two, to add a couple extra points onto the total?
Yeah, I wonder if the rotations also could maybe just be a little tighter with like who gets into the game and stuff. It's
Yeah,
something to watch.
it certainly could be.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on as you keep. I remember last year, like that final. Dell's trying to hurry me up here. Remember last year, that final day, there was like 20 scenarios laid out. So as we keep going, you're just gonna keep getting more and more scenarios that we can probably play off of, which is honestly my favorite part about the NBA Cup. Wasn't my favorite part when they brought LaMelo Ball back. I can say that though.
I liked it. I had a lot of them in DFS. It ended up not mattering, but yeah, that was the one playing time thing that really stood out.
All right, we'll get into. We only have one pick because there is the one game. We didn't want to force any picks here. Adam is from EV Analytics. They do fantastic prop projections. You can find them on the website, Covers website. Go to Sports NBA Prop Projections. Adam's just going to apply those projections to the bets and kind of give us more words because those are just numbers. And if you're new to the release procedure, we'll tell you the game. It's going to be Jazz Mavericks today. Prop market we're betting on, the player we're betting on, and then we'll break it down. First bet, let's get into it. We're going to DraftKings, Jazz Mavericks, only game on the board. No, this isn't our first time using this market, but we're looking at the threes made. We attacked Chris Paul in this one earlier in the year. And then the player we're looking for is Najee Marshall. And our price is there, so it's good. So Najee Marshall under half threes made plus 135. So once again, that's Najee Marshall under half threes made plus 135. Adam, you want to break this one down?
Yeah, it's just the price here. So we have Najee projected for 23 minutes. I think that might end up being a little bit higher later on in the day. PJ Washington is doubtful. He's averaged like 28 minutes per game overall in the games without Washington, but it is skewed a little bit. It's only been 4 games. He played 36 minutes in one of those, which is going to drive it up. He only played 24 minutes last game. So, I think expecting mid-ish minutes from him makes sense. And for the season, he's averaging about 24 minutes per game, only averaging about 2 3-point attempts per game. So 2 3-point attempts per 24 minutes. And career 31, just shy of 31% 3-point shooter. So if you take, 20, if you basically take his season average, you assume he's going to take 2 3-pointers, make 31% of them. That's like 0.6, I think. We haven't projected for 0.6 threes. And it just comes back to, the mean versus median. Like, he needs to make a 3 for you to lose this bet. If he only takes 2 of them, he would have to make 50%, which is much better than his career. Like on average, he needs to take 3+ threes for this to be a losing bet for you from a median standpoint. And you're getting plus money on it. So basically, you need him to just not shoot hot from 3, and you need to avoid the game where he goes out there and plays 36 minutes and ends up getting an extra 3 or 2.
Yeah, this is so it's plus 125 at BetMGM. There's a plus 130 at 365, and I think Caesars was plus 126 when we came on air here. Just to speak to Najee Marshall, I kind of thought he would be more productive once they moved him into the starting lineup here. He's kind of been less productive from what I don't say. You kind of assume, PJ Washington out, go in minutes. You're playing along Luka, Kyrie. He had some really good games off the bench. He seems to be way less involved offensively. Is that kind of what you're seeing too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes, both ways. Obviously, like you're expecting to get more open looks the more that you're on the floor with Luka and Kyrie, but you're also expecting to get fewer touches in general.
Yeah, I wondered too when you sent this in. I was like, the Jazz are very weak on the interior now too, without Walker Kessler's out. Taylor Hendricks has been out for a while. Markkanen is back. But like that rim protection, the emphasis might not be on shooting threes, right? Get to the rim, we can finish around the rim. This is there. Are we even going to kick out, type thing? So I do like this play. And you could also get the boost. Like PJ Washington could maybe play, right? Like he's doubtful. I don't know if they'll force against the Jazz, but he's been out the last couple games.
Yeah. And in the 4 starts that Marshall's made, he's averaging 3-pointers per game. So again, that is a 31% career shooter. That's basically putting you at a coin flip to win or lose this bet at plus 130.
I'm just going to touch on some things in the chat here. It says Cavs team total for tomorrow night is 120.5 at the end of the game. If they're blowing the Bulls out, they will not be doing the bullshit sportsmanship, letting the clock run out. They're in the Celtics division. I would imagine they obviously feel like, this is their group to win now. Celtics take a loss against the Hawks. I feel like they're going to run up that, because even if even if they lose now to the Celtics and they both 3-1, it's going to come down to point differential. So do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have a take as far as knowing
number.
What I would bet or anything. The one thing that I would caution with this, because I think the logic makes sense, obviously. The one thing you always have to keep in mind, I think I've mentioned it on this show before, is you have to you're going to be a lot more successful thinking through narrative type stuff like this if you have a baseline for what it normally would be, what you would expect it to be. If you would expect the Cavs team total here to be 117 typically, and now it's 120.5, you're not gaining anything by betting it with this narrative because it's already baked in. If you would expect it to be 120.5 and it's 120.5, then I think it's a really good bet probably, because they are likely to play differently than normal. So I don't personally have a take on it other than the logic makes sense, but I would still need to know kind of where the team total normally would be in a non-NBA Cup game to know how much I actually like the bet.
Yeah, I think I think that's a great point when you're talking about all these things. So you don't necessarily want to bet the narrative. So it's if you think 120.5 is too low, and then that narrative is kind of like the added piece. So say the projection for the Cavs is 123 points, then you're like, okay, so the projection is over. We think the total's too low, and they might not. They might keep their foot on the gas. Those are kind of like those added things where it's like we're not betting it solely for the narrative. That's what you're trying to say. We're not betting it solely for the narrative, but the narrative helps the bet that we might already like based on the projections.
Yeah, think about it. It always helps to think about things in extremes. Going into Kobe's last game, he's going to shoot a lot, right? If the line is over under 55 field goal attempts, you can't just say, well, it's Kobe's last game, over, because clearly the line has already jumped to 55 field goal attempts, which is an absurd number that it would never be. If it were, 25, like it might normally be, then you're just going to slam the over because of the narrative. So you do need a baseline for what would this be without the narrative, and then how much do I think the narrative moves this number? So you do just want to be careful about immediately saying, well, there's a narrative here, let me take the over or let me take the under, without thinking about has the number already moved because of the narrative.
Last thing here I'll touch on, because we brought up on Tuesday, Donovan Mitchell yesterday, same totals, 4.5 assists, huge plus money. And I didn't bet it, and he has 9 assists. And the worst part was he was playing the 76ers, and I assumed Joel Embiid and Paul George would not be playing. So you're like, this has massive blow potential. So when you're talking about those minutes with Donovan Mitchell, they're already low. If they're killing the Sixers, they're going to be even lower. And of course, he just goes out there and rips way over the number and stuff. Jared McCain, new favorite rookie of the year. Do you have any thoughts on, I'm throwing you on the bus, I didn't ask you about this before. I think he's been over 25 points the last 3 games. He had 32 last night. New favorite. Do you think that's more or less just because Paul George, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey are all out, or do you think that can continue if they all come in? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. So, if the whole team is healthy, it's just hard to think that he has that big of a role on this team as currently constructed. But the caveat there is clearly he can produce when given the opportunity. And how often is a Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey team going to be fully healthy throughout the course of the season? So, and also relatively weak rookie class helps a bit too.
Yeah, I'm just concerned. My concern would be, once, even if he starts, because Nick Nurse has kind of talked about starting him, even if you start him, once you throw in all 3 of those guys, the usage would just tank, right? He's not going to get the ball enough. It's more he's had really good games here, but that's not with them. That's the hard one. The thing is, the flip side of that is, what if they just have a bad year, injured, tanking, they don't really do what you think, and he does start getting all this usage in minutes. It's a weird one. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
and
really
you
know
also
what
get
really
the
puts it on.
efficiency bump, most
Yeah.
likely. You know, the more minutes that you're playing with stars around you, the less of a focal point you're going to be. Like, it was really impressive, I thought, last night that he was able to go have that game when he is the focal point of the offense, basically because they have nobody else.
Yeah, that was a really impressive showing from him last night. That's what I think 2 days ago he was like 40-1, and now he's plus 350. He totally
Right.
tanked his price after that.
Yeah, I mean, the like rookie of the year markets in general just shift so dramatically that I probably wouldn't be betting him right now, just because something will happen. Some other rookie will have a big game, and then the odds will shift. But in general, I mean, I think he's got to be the favorite or up there.
Yeah, well, nobody's really shown much, right? So like
Right.
he's the first one to like really jump out there. I think Dalton Connect had like 19 points last night.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the Wizards guys are going to get opportunities all season long and probably improve as the year goes on.
Yeah, I have a bet on Bob Carrington, by the way, from Summer League. Anyways,
I like it.
we'll keep her moving. So Adam is 11-5 on the year, plus 6.39 units. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, keep the show going. Adam, you want to let the people know where they can follow you at too?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. Also, NBA DFS content on the Endgame Syndicate YouTube channel.
Give Adam a follow as well on X, all his channels and stuff. One bet today, Najee Marshall under half threes plus 135 DraftKings. Hopefully he does not make 1-3 and we get a sweep. It's not a sweep with one play, but hopefully we get the win. We get the one win. We will be back Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. This concludes the NBA Prop Pick Show powered by EV Analytics. Del, play the song.